Well, it's the end of another day, and I'm out here enjoying a cigar. Excited to have you. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. I've had some questions come in, and I just thought I'd share those with you. Hopefully, they're going to be entertaining. Hopefully, they're encouraging. I appreciate you joining me. Stick around. It's going to be a great episode. And what I learned from it was that you don't look at a loss as a complete loss that takes something away from you, but that you can gain something from that loss, and it becomes that lesson. The advice I would give to my younger self is don't focus so much on the short term. Invest in the long term. Don't put as much pressure on yourself to make things happen immediately, but allow the process to produce what it will produce. It's interesting, I had some questions come in, and looking over them, I don't want to answer them. I really don't. I don't know if you feel that way. It seems like people today don't want to open up, and it's probably because we just don't feel like we can trust anybody. Sadly, I think it's because most people are not as trustworthy as they used to be. It seems like everyone's got some ulterior motive. It's not even a matter of an agenda, but it's just the uncertainty, the unknown of how is this going to be used against me. I have a feeling that you're going to either use, abuse, take advantage of, screw over, ghost, whatever it is, but there's something that seems to stop people from actually opening up to have real conversation, real relationship. It's across the board. It's really, really bizarre. I don't know if you feel that way. I don't know if you've experienced that. I know it's really ironic that social media is as prevalent as it is, and yet, I know I'm not the first person to say this, that we are the most isolated society in history. I look at how many people are willing to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on things they like or dislike, not just on social media, but on news articles and everything. It's like everybody can just quickly throw out their opinion, but then not really do anything to back that up, to engage in conversation, to actually work to hear another side, to grow, any of that kind of stuff. I was talking to my wife and actually discussing about how it's challenging to find people who are thinkers, and I don't think that that's the truth. I think it's a matter of finding people who are willing to share their thoughts. I know that most people think, whether they have good thoughts, deep thoughts, introspective, just self-defeating, whatever it is. I know we've got thoughts running through our head all the time, but I wonder, why is it so hard to get people to share those thoughts? And I think a big part of that is obviously cancel culture. Everybody is so scared to death of something being used against them in a way that will silence them moving forward. And I'm not yeah. All right, so here are the questions. Background and influences. Can you share a bit about your background and how it shaped who you are today? Well, my background, I came from a family of ministers. Dad was a pastor, had been an evangelist. My grandfather was a traveling tent preacher. My great-great-grandfather was a pastor. And I've got pastors on both sides, all up and down, whatever aisle, tree branch, whatever you want to call it. That's what I grew up in. I will say that I am thankful. My dad modeled for me the importance of a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, not just checking off your to-do list, what you need to do to be a good person, good Christian. It really was diving into a relationship with Christ, having that one-on-one relationship with God, regardless of what happens in your life, regardless of what people come in and out of your life, what they do to you, for you, through you, against you, whatever, it does not matter. God is the consistent one in your life who will be there with you. Jesus said, I will be with you to the end of the age. That is something that really has been a driving force for me. Next question is, who have been your biggest influences in life and why? I would go back to my dad. Has definitely been the primary influence in my life because of that. Beyond that, I would definitely say my wife has been the second biggest influence on my life. We met whenever I was 17 years old. Because of her and her family, they really did help me grow into a different person. I was very much of the mindset of a child. When I met her, I still lived at home, obviously 17 in high school. I really never stood up for myself. I didn't question authority. My dad was one who could give an extremely stern look that would just silence me, stop me from doing whatever I was doing, and I would try and just make sure that I looked the part for whatever part I needed to be. My wife, she grew up in a family. Her mother was a counselor, and she wanted all of her children to have a voice. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my wife, they encouraged me to start speaking my mind and helped me to recognize my thoughts were, helped me to articulate my feelings, my emotions, explore all of that kind of stuff, help flesh that out, share that with others so others could understand what I was thinking, and they encouraged me to stand up for myself. I owe a tremendous debt to them. I would not be who I am without them as well. So those would be my biggest influences. Another question is, can you share a time when you faced a significant challenge? Share a time I faced a significant challenge. And how did I overcome it, and what did I learn from it? I'll go back to when I was 16 years old. I had a girlfriend my parents did not want me to be with. It was a really complicated process for me, and finally I got to a point where they told me, they said, you need to break up with her. Like I said, I didn't speak up for myself. I was frustrated. I had all of these things that I was really, really angry about. My dad, nonchalantly, I'd been writing at the time, doing artistic writing or whatever you want to call it, but just writing a lot. And he said, the night he told me about it, and you know what it's like to be a teenager and have those emotions just so real and overwhelming, completely all-consuming, right? I was infatuated with this girl, and he said, you need to break up with her. And I was just so livid, and he could tell I probably looked like I wanted to punch him, and he goes, you should go write about this. This is how the best songs are written. I was so angry. It reminded me a little bit about the song, I'm gonna write you a love song cause you asked for it. But it was before that song came out. But I can understand where she was coming from in that song. What's interesting is I actually, at the end of it, we'd been together for a year. By the end of the year, I was good with not being with her. I realized she was not a good person for me. Part of the reason that I think I was with her was because I was fighting against my dad. As long as I had that push to go against what he was wanting, I felt like I needed to be with her. As soon as he backed off and quit, I realized, yeah, I don't really want to be with her. She wasn't a good fit for me. Once I made up my mind, I moved on, and people would ask me, what did you learn from this? And I was like, oh man, what a wasted year. It was terrible. It was a wasted year of my life. I really felt in that moment, why would I waste an entire year and just throw it away? Instead of feeling like that loss was a complete wasted loss, I really felt like the Holy Spirit said, you should learn from this. Don't let this be a waste, but let it be a lesson. And so I realized there were things that I had in that relationship that were not good, and I did grow from that. I think for me, that was what I did to overcome it. And what I learned from it was that you don't look at a loss as a complete loss that takes something away from you, but that you can gain something from that loss, and it becomes that lesson. I guess the segue for the next question is, how do you approach personal growth and self-development? Similar kind of way is, I don't look at things that most people look at as a setback. I look at it as an opportunity to learn, to really analyze what I did, what I could have done differently, what worked well, what didn't work well. I try to be a student of life. I try to be a student from multiple voices around me. I don't just take my own experiences. I really do listen to what others go through, what they share. Try and take note for myself, so if I ever find myself in a similar situation, I can glean from others the wisdom of pain that they have had to earn, and I can hopefully avoid it. That's my big thing, is I try to be a learner of life from those around me, as well as the life experiences that I have. So I guess the final question that I'll read here and I'll go over tonight is, what advice would you give to your younger self? The advice I would give to my younger self is, don't focus so much on the short term. Invest in the long term. People put so much of an emphasis on what's happening now, what's happening in the immediate, and they put way too less of a value on the long term. There is something that happens in finance, and it happens in life. Incremental investments, what you invest in small increments over time, really do compound to bring about an amazing return, and it takes a lot of the pressure and stress off of you trying to force something to produce before it's time. You know, you wouldn't come into somebody's kitchen when they're making a dinner for you, they've invited you over, and they've got something in the oven. You wouldn't go in and automatically take it out and taste it while it was still cooking and go, this is terrible, I'm leaving. And then you leave and go tell everybody about how terrible of a cook that your friends are. No, that's stupid. The reason you wouldn't do that is because it takes time to make the meal. You have to allow things to develop. You have to allow things time to cook. Well, it's the same thing for your life. You wouldn't want somebody to look at you in the middle of your process and say, why are you not here? Why are you not at this level yet? And it may be because you're still at a different stage. Maybe the oven's still warming up. You're still mixing the ingredients together. But there's also a pressure that we put on ourselves, and we need to give ourselves that same freedom and that same liberty to develop. Don't put as much pressure on yourself to make things happen immediately, but allow the process to produce what it will produce. Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing some of the questions and answers that I had for you this evening. I really am glad that you stuck around. If you are not subscribed to the channel yet, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. If you liked what you heard, give me a thumbs up. Better yet, put something in the comments that stood out to you. Any questions that you've got that you want me to talk about. I'd love to hear them, love to have them. And I hope to see you again next time when we can share a cigar and change the world.